Good afternoon. I acknowledge all of you on this floor, on the lower floor, on the upper floor, as well as those listening in on the internet. I understand that you have a new television series here in the United States called America's New War. And I'm wondering how many of you are already addicted to it. Remember that no matter how much factual information is provided on this new series, you are still being fed a lot of propaganda. You are being encouraged to see things in a certain way. If you are aware that teaching is occurring, then you can be cautious in what you choose to learn. If you do not know that teaching is occurring, you may take everything that is said hook, line, and sinker. Your perspective will be changed, whether you want it to be changed or not, and you are no longer in control. And what I mean by that is that you're no longer being conscious. As most of you know, the Course says that everyone is teaching all the time. Every single one of you is teaching at every single moment. Right now, in your quietness, you are teaching each other that it is appropriate in this setting to be still, you see. If there were a few in the room who were chatting amongst themselves, they would be teaching that in this setting, it's appropriate to listen or chat. And so teaching is going on all the time, and learning is going on all the time. Be conscious of this fact, so that you may sort out what you wish to learn and what you do not wish to learn. Why? Because what you learn, you will embody in the world. Now, in the last gathering, we spent a great deal of time talking about witnessing for your brother or sister. And that it is in witnessing for the very best in them that promotes healing. And that the way to witness to the best in your brother is to become still within yourself and listen to God, whether it's through your guide or directly, for his perspective about your brother, and not choosing to rely upon your best perception of your brother in order to have the picture you would hold of him or her. Now, I would ask you, since September 11th, how much of your time have you spent in the quietness within, asking God what is the truth about your brother? How many of you have remembered that you have the option to know and hold in your mind the very best about Osama bin Laden? Or how many of you have, with the pride of Americanism, joined with those who are saying, "Kill the bastard"? Of course, they're saying that because they're relying on their best perception, or they're relying on the best perception they choose to use, and they are rallying with each other as a group because they think that gives them force and power to get even. Now, as it happens, Osama did not witness to the best in himself. Let's make sure that his poor witnessing to the truth about himself doesn't cause you to witness to the least or the least best in you, and thus become a force for terrorism against Osama bin Laden, or the Afghans, or those in the Middle East, or those who look like they are Middle Easterners. If there's one thing I want you to go home from this weekend remembering, it is that you're witnessing to the truth about your fellow man. The witnessing you give to him that has been derived from your connection with God heals, transforms, regenerates. You have the capacity, for lack of better words, to be a force for good in the world that is transformational. If you know that, it will be a little bit more difficult for you to choose to become reactive and to fall into an aggressive search or an aggressive search for justice. If you go for justice, you will not get healing. Is that clear? If you go for justice, you will not get healing. If you go for healing, you will always get justice. But justice will be that which blesses everyone involved. It will never be a matter of getting even. Now, be careful about the words that are presented to you. America's new WAR, war. The new kind of war for the new millennium. This is not war, it's a sloppy use of words. It's a gang of bullies who do not have the capacity to wage war in the sense that war has been defined by world wars. The use of the word war is made because everyone here in the US and in the rest of the world are being rallied to bring their attention and their energy to do something about the neighborhood bully. But if it remains clear that what is being dealt with is a neighborhood bully and not a nation, it will be clear that the response will be very different from real war. It will also elicit less fear. It will actually elicit more support from all citizens around the world because they know it needs to be done, but they also know that if the word war is used, and if the sloppy use of war, the word war, is used, it will potentially allow for greater force than is necessary to come into play, which would be a great mistake. If in a schoolyard there are 3 or 4 bullies who are starting a fight, what happens? The adults in the arena come out. They are not swayed by the energy that the 3 bullies are exhibiting, and they are not sucked into a response that is equally emotional. No. They, in the garb of their adulthood, use intelligence and restrain the bullies from their activity. Do they burn down the school? No. Because it's clear to them that this is a handful of children out of all of the population of the school who are behaving in a way that does not express the best in them because they are not feeling the best in themselves. And they know that the answer is to help educate those boys into a better understanding of the best in themselves. Now, I want you to know something. As long as you hold someone or something, whether it's a person or a disease or an accident or Mother Nature in terms of a hurricane, let us say, as long as you know what or believe you know what is responsible for the problem and can place the blame there, you cannot heal those who were injured in whatever event occurred. You cannot claim a victimizer without having a victim. If you want to demonstrate through healing that there is no victim, you must release the so-called victimizer from your definition of him as something less than the best that he is. If you exonerate through healing the perpetrator of the crime vanishes and the effects of the crime vanish. If a virus has invaded your body and your body is deteriorating, and you, let us say, see the virus clearly as what it divinely is, or that it has no existence at all because it doesn't express any of the authority of God, then the disease, the deterioration, that it had precipitated will vanish. You see what I'm saying? You must not only heal the effects of a terrorizer, you must heal the terrorizer. You can't heal only one or the other. And so you cannot wish for the best for the victims and still hold the victimizer as being totally responsible for the victimization. It's a simple fact that if you're in an accident and you have whiplash or a physical problem generated from the accident, that those who go to court to get justice do not heal as fast because they must rehearse over and over to attorneys, to the court. They must rehearse over and over the fact that they've been damaged, the details of the damage, and how it was unjust, and their healing is delayed. And perhaps it's never total, because they must continue to hold the victimizer guilty. And in order to hold the victimizer guilty, they must be able to show the effects of what that guilty party did to them. You see what I'm saying? So if you want healing from something, whether it's an external victimizer or an internal victimizer called a virus, or even an internal mental victimizer called the practice of hate or fear, you've got to clear everything. You must see the innocence of everything. You are here to recognize that which is real with a capital R in each and everything. Each and everything. Love is the recognition of that which is real in each and everything. And you don't have the right to sort out which things are worthy of your loving. You say, well, that's really hard under the circumstances. Well, you know what? Osama will tell me the same thing. Because he didn't do what he did for no reason. He's angry. And I'm not going to go into whether the anger is justified or not. How he chose to deal with it was not appropriate. But that there was something to be dealt with is as clear to him as it now seems to be clear to all of you that there is something that truly needs to be dealt with in terms of terrorism. Do you see what I'm saying? So be careful before you think you're too much better than he is. And be careful that you do not make the assumption that he has no legitimate justification for his anger. His reasons may be faulty, but all of you have experienced faulty thinking that you have been able to justify and see as totally legitimate. Whether you choose to deal with things constructively or destructively is your choice. But if you choose to deal with them destructively, you're going to be met with a demand for correction of that choice. And so there is a need for correction here. But how that correction can be effected will depend upon whether or not you're gathering your perception of the victimizer from God or from your egos. And if you're choosing the perspective of your ego, you've made the wrong choice and correction will be needed. And if you follow through on it before correction is made, you will have conflict. Now, I want to come back to this point. You're choosing to witness on behalf of every one of your brothers and sisters. And your choice to do it from God's perspective because you have been willing to abandon your emotional reactions and get into your peace so that you might connect with your guidance, which reflects the Father's will. That is not only what your responsibility is, that is not only what your function is, but it has power to heal because you are embodying that which has real capital M meaning in the world, because the meaning is being gathered from the Father and you are witnessing for your brother. Now, it might mean that this brother who was not expressing the best of himself is captured. It may mean that he goes to jail. It may not mean that he has a sudden transformation of his mind. But his capacity to continue to behave, his ability to continue to act out his legitimate distress in a destructive way will be stopped. And the opportunity for learning and having transformation in his mind can occur. It is not your job to assume what the outcome of your willingness to witness to the best in him is going to look like. But you can count on it that the threat will be removed. So, you have the power to make change. It's not a personal power, it's a reflected power. Your ego thinks you have personal power, and it tells you that you have personal power, then that's the way it victimizes and terrorizes you. It terrorizes you by suggesting that you have authority of your own apart from God, apart from the very source of your being. And if you buy into it and you begin to try to act independent of God, then you are immediately and forever in some degree of fear. And to live in ongoing fear at one level or another is terrorism. Now, you have the power to change by reflection, meaning that when you choose to go within find your peace in the midst of the most horrendous events, so that nothing is more important to you than feeling and experiencing God's point of view, then your conscious experience of God's point of view does become embodied. Not by any power you have personally, but because you've allowed the only power there is to be the only power present in your mind. Now, if you let this sink in, it will become apparent to you that if it's your task, it's your function to do this with Osama bin Laden, whom all of you have a certain amount of feelings about, it will become clear to you that the bastard you work for isn't nearly as bad as you thought he was, and is much more tolerable than you thought he was, and at least your perspective will have improved regarding your boss, or your spouse, or your children, or whoever it might be, who might be being difficult, but not nearly as difficult as Osama has been. And as I said in the last gathering, when you make the choice for listening to God and experiencing the influx of His perspective, not only are you being an agent for change, embodied change in the world, manifest change in the world, you have the blessing of experiencing peace while the world is being blessed by something you're not personally capable of, but which you are capable of allowing to manifest through you. You see? And when you choose to listen to the TV and all the propaganda, as well as the grief and so on, that is being shared, and you become reactive, you don't feel good. But you also become ineffective as an agent for change. And you might say, well, if I'm not feeling grief, I must be insensitive. I must be being inhumane. But let me tell you something. If that is what being humane means, that you suffer and grieve along with everyone else, and it means that you cannot be an agent for change, which means that suffering must continue because nothing can change it, then how humane is that? Someone might say, well, I don't understand how you can be so peaceful in the midst of all of this. Aren't you paying attention? Aren't you alive? Don't you know what's going on? Doesn't it mean anything to you? And on and on. And you say, yes, I'm aware of it. But I'm choosing to be aware of it from my most grounded inner place, where I am not so upset and reactive from my emotions that I can't think clearly, and I can't think intelligently, and I can't see what really needs to be done. I'm not doing that. I know that I am more available to be the place where exactly the right thing can be done. It's my choice to be that place where what I do matters and I don't do anything that doesn't matter.